Hey, folks, if you want early access to episodes as they drop, click that subscribe button, join us, and together we'll fix the broken U.S. healthcare system. We'll see you on the next one.
Get ready to take control of your healthcare. Here's your host, Ray Kober.
And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broken Healthcare. My name is Ray Kober. I am your host, and today's guest is Tiffany Ryder, a physician assistant, former NFL cheerleader, and passionate healthcare advocate with one of the most compelling stories you'll hear. Tiffany grew up without access to care. She experienced firsthand the failures of our system through her own family, and later found herself at Walter Reed caring for wounded service members. She's since built a career in emergency medicine and now works on the front lines of patient education, helping people navigate a system that often works against them. Tiffany believes no one will ever care more about your health than you do, and she's here to share why empowering patients is the key to fixing what's broken in healthcare. I think you're at the right place. Welcome to the big show, Tiffany.
Yeah, I love that intro. I might have to steal that.
Nothing ChatGPT couldn't put together for us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ray.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Our paths cross. We've traveled in the same circles for years, running into each other at industry conferences. And it's funny because we're in our own little world, when we attend these conferences, and there's everything from brokers and solution providers and physicians, and it kind of runs the gamut. And I don't know about you, but you tend to forget that there's a whole world out there that knows nothing about this little microcosm that we're in and that we call healthcare. And so for you, you have a very interesting story, and I want to go way back and kind of take us to like your early days, childhood. Where'd you grow up? What was going through young Tiffany's mind? As let's say a kid, sub 10 years old. What was life like for you?
Yeah. Oh, what a crazy question, right? I'm really grateful for my childhood. I grew up in rural Louisiana, and the world was very, very small.
All right, wait a second.
Yeah.
You grew up in rural Louisiana.
Yeah.
I don't detect like a harsh New Orleans / Louisiana accent. What happened to that?
Yeah. So that was a lot of work and dedication on my part. But when I was a young adult, I ended up moving to the DC area.
Yeah.
And a nice, cute Southern accent just really didn't go along with being respected or accepted in professional circles.
And I say that with love because I'm a New Yorker, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, where's your accent? And I'm like, well, don't piss me off.
I mean, a glass of wine will usually bring it out.
I got your accent right here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. And I think if you do a lot of traveling and you go to different parts of the country, your ear just kind of changes, you get acclimated. And, I think for a lot of us, I think I'm going to include myself in this, you tend to lose that regional kind of whatever that is that you grew up with.
Yep.
But I'm sure, like me, you can pull it out when you need it, or
100%.
Or not even. It's not even that you need it. It's just the default that you go back to.
I think you're right. It's emotions and booze do it pretty easily.
I concur.
I also lived overseas and spoke in a different language throughout the day, most of my days.
What language?
In German.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I lived...
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Yeah, ich spreche. and I think that had a lot to do with that transition too, because it gave me space. And then I was in this expat sort of community where everyone was from different regions in the U.S. And I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
And so getting back to my question, what was life growing up, and where were you just like geographically? Like I don't know Louisiana, like New Orleans is my reference point.
Yeah,
where were you? How far?
Yeah, like right in the middle.
Right in
the middle, outside of Alexandria, just literally the smallest town you could ever imagine. Full of wonderful people.
Yep.
Right? But people who think about life differently and, have different experiences and different frames of reference,
Yeah.
certainly in a lot of different things, but also in healthcare.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you still have roots there? Do you go back or?
I do.
Okay.
I do. My mom is still there.
Oh, sweet.
And I've got family there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I grew up in, Queens, where I am today. So a small town, nothing. I don't know anything from a small town other than going on trips to places like where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I know what I know. And I always, if you do enough traveling, I think it's healthy for everyone to travel and see different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And even on a short trip, I'm very careful not to make a judgment about would I live here? Wouldn't I live here? I like these people. I don't like these people. Sometimes there are extremes where you just kind of know in your gut it's not a love connection, right? Sure. But I think it's really interesting and fascinating for me to go and, visit places that are outside of Queens, New York City, Long Island, which is my frame of reference. It really gives you a different perspective on things and on the world. And I think, speaking for me personally, it really helps. It helps me kind of center to just have an appreciation for what life is like that is not the life that you're living. I don't know if you agree with that or.
I mean, I totally agree. And honestly, for me, it sounds almost overdone to put it this way, but everything leads back to my mission, right?
Yeah.
And my mission is really being grounded in humility and trying to help other people see that the world looks a lot different based on what perspective you're viewing from. And I think that really speaks to that, right? If you only think that, I don't know, bagels is a bad example, right? But breakfast can be had however New Yorkers have it.
Right.
Then well, who are you to define breakfast for everyone? I know you're a New Yorker and you have that right. But everything, viewing it from the different perspectives. And I think travel is like a big part of that. And it's one of the reasons that I view the world as varying shades of gray.
Yeah.
And healthcare included, I think, is part of that
for sure.
way.
All right. So here's what's so funny about what you just said. So my wife and I are both we said, all right, we're going to do the Whole30. And the Whole30 is really like close to the carnivore. We're going to cut out all the ultra processed stuff and this and that and the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And, it's really hard to kind of stick to that when you're used to not eating anything you want. Let's put it that way.
Bagels.
So we have one of the best bagel shops in the frigging world.
Yeah.
That's about 5 minutes from my house. It's called Utopia Bagels. She walks in with a bag of bagels today. And I'm like, honey, you're killing me. She's like, do you want a bagel? I said, yes, I want a bagel, but I'm not going to have one.
Did you make it? You didn't do it?
No, I didn't do it.
Okay.
I didn't do it. So today I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm very easily swayed. But, I'd like to touch on kind of health and nutrition and all that. Sure. But getting back to center, because I'm very like shiny object, ADD. I want to know because you're so accomplished. You've whether you, I don't want to make you blush or embarrassed about your achievements, but you've achieved a lot. And that doesn't just happen. That comes from somewhere. So I guess I want to know, did that start early in life, or, was there a moment where you just were like, yeah, I'm going to put the Barbie doll down or the baseball bat or whatever you were into, and say, this is something that I feel drawn to.
Yeah. And, to go back to your original question of what's it like in rural Louisiana, I think for me, at least, growing up when I did, we're about the same age. The world.
I don't think we're about the same age.
Well,
I think you're much. But Brother Ray is going to be 59.
We are not
October
the same
2nd.
Age.
We're not the same age.
Okay, but close enough. But it's like life was simple, right? And as a young woman, I looked up to the women in my life that I really respected and admired, and still do.
Yeah.
And they were primarily homemakers, and they were good wives and good mothers, and that's what I aspired to growing up. I didn't really understand that the world needed anything more than that, and for a lot of people, it still doesn't.
Yeah.
but it wasn't something that I grew up saying, oh, I'm going to change the world in these big ways outside of my home.
Right.
But I think for me, and
to be fair, no one's thinking about that, like, preteen. It's
right?
just not a thought in your mind.
But certainly things that happened during that time, that happened in my family, that happened in my personal life. Once I was on the other side of this and moved across the country and was living this totally different life in a different environment where I was watching women who looked at life completely differently than the way I had been raised, I said, oh, maybe I can solve this problem.
Yeah.
And so I think it wasn't until I was, college age that I really even knew that there were other things to be done.
Yep. What'd you study in college?
Oh, I studied exercise science, which I would not recommend to anyone.
Well, why not?
Well, because I think I graduated with a lower starting salary than when I graduated from high school.
Okay. So if income is on the bucket list, maybe not.
I mean, and it probably should be when, you're spending $75,000 on college or whatever it is, right? So it wasn't the best choice. But the reason I did that is because I had some experiences in high school. My brother had some mental health difficulties and had found himself in a situation where he was having to confront very adult things at a very young, 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you don't get to pick, right?
You don't get to choose.
Life just
right?
kind of happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And had found himself, helping my mom run a business. And, he was in undergrad getting a business degree and was under all of this pressure to make things work. The business failed.
Most do.
Yeah. Right? But at 21 years old, you think that, you should have been able to take over the world.
I love that.
Right? And he had a really difficult time with that.
Yeah.
And ended up being hospitalized, and we didn't have health insurance at the time. And you go through this scary experience, and then you show up at the hospital to pick up your loved one, and you say, well, okay, now what do we do? And, basically someone just grabs a big stack of papers and sort of shoves it in your face and says, oh, you need to go to these doctors to follow up and take these medications and do this stuff. And it's a whole bunch of language that you don't really understand. It's overwhelming. You're already upset. You don't really understand the context of what happened. There's nothing that prepares you for dealing with the stress of this or the actual logistics of, well, how do you find care when you don't even know how, right? And you don't know how to pay for it, and you don't know what the best thing is. So anyway, all of these things
it was just thrust on you.
We're just there, right? Yeah. And I think I was probably 14, 15 years old at the time. And my mom did the best that she could. She had been a nurse her whole life, but still, the healthcare system is hard for everyone.
Sure.
And we weren't able to really.
So your mom was a nurse. So there was kind of a thread of medicine in your family.
There was, but except I was like, well, if I do anything, it definitely won't be that.
Because you saw what she went through.
Because I saw what she went through, and I saw the
thank her for her service when you see her.
I will.
Yeah, tell her you're on the Broken Healthcare podcast, and Ray said, I appreciate your service, because truly, I think the nurses are the backbone of our healthcare system. They're the unsung heroes. They do the work that nobody wants to do. For the most part, they are overworked and underpaid, and just not appreciated generally. So that won't happen on my podcast.
It's so true.
I love the nurses.
Yeah. So we ended up going through this whole, life change, and we weren't able to get. I say we as if 15-year-old me was supposed to be able to do something, but we couldn't get my brother the help that he needed at that time to really just stand up on his feet and not have this be a heavy thing that really affected his life going forward. And it was devastating. And I said, well, I guess this is what healthcare is. And then I moved on with my life, right? As best I could. Yep. And
just rolling with the punches. I mean, you're like, hey, what are we going to do about this?
I don't really know. Here we are. So, fast forward, I fell in love and married my high school sweetheart who joined the military. I got married when I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah. Got pregnant when I was 18, had my first baby when I was 19.
OMG.
Yes. And I think during that time was just like, I'd always wanted to have a family. So this was like, okay, this is how this works. This is okay.
Yeah.
He was in the military. There was a supportive environment. But I think going through that process, really like put me in a place to say, okay, well, like what's next? Okay, we can have, 8 more babies. Sure, let's do that. But also like all of these women, like in Maryland, DC area, like all of these women were doing like all of this really cool stuff. They had these like big jobs where they were, changing the world in whatever ways were important to them. And it was just a whole nother life. And I said, well,
so is this, did his work take him there? And so you relocated.
Exactly. Yep.
And so now you're in the Maryland, DC area. And you're just, I'm
just living life. I'm going to college. I'm raising my daughter.
Making friends, neighbors, stuff like that. And just through...
And just seeing
social
these
contact,
professional women
like,
doing
wow.
this cool stuff. And I was
Look at
like,
that.
oh, that's kind of interesting. And actually, it turns out they have families too. Maybe I can have a family and also do big things. And so I found myself in this place where I'm like sort of looking around and trying to figure out what's next. And I mean, I was a 20-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it would be really cool to be like an NFL cheerleader. That sounds hard. Like that sounds like something to do. And so,
oh my,
right. I mean, it's like, it's the silliest thing now, but at the time I was like, oh, this is the biggest thing I could ever do. Well, why don't I go do that?
Right.
And so I go and I'm in like the Baltimore area. And so I said, okay, I can try out for the Ravens. I can try out for the Redskins, and I can try out for the Eagles.
Okay.
And so I did those things. Right. So I go, I didn't make it past the first round at any of these auditions.
Oh, wow.
And I go back to my colleagues at school, I guess my classmates or whatever we call them. And I said, well, like I didn't make the team of any of these things. Like I'm not quite sure. Well, what do I do about that? Right? Like, do I try again? It was like the first time in my life, I think, that I'd ever like confronted failure and then been like, well, do I do what it takes to like do the next step, or do we just give up here? Like, what is the process?
Yeah.
And someone, a girlfriend of mine looked at me, and she was much older than I was. She was in a mentorship capacity. She was my boss at the time. And she said, sweetie, you are just beautiful, just the way you are. But if this is really important to you, I think you should probably lose like 25 or 30 pounds.
What?
And I was like,
come on.
25 or 30 pounds. And she was like, I mean, not to look good, but if this is like what you want to accomplish, I think this is probably what's required. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of nutty, but I mean, I'll do it. And I was much heavier than I am now. And
I mean, you look amazing now. So were you 200 pounds?
I mean, I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the backstory before this, right, is that also a few months before I had this conversation, I had gone into the doctor for like my routine physical, and they're like, oh, we should get some labs, blah blah. So they do the things, and they had come back and they said, we actually think like these issues that you're having with your cycle and your blood sugar, we think you have this thing called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And we also think you have this other thing called prediabetes. And I said, oh, well, like, what are those things? What can I do about it? Like, what, like, do I take a medicine or something? And the doctor literally she looks at me and she said, no, sweetie, don't worry about it. What we're going to do is, you're just going to go on living your life. You're an appropriate, weight, size, whatever. Everything's fine. Some people are just genetically predisposed to have these sorts of troubles. And we'll just keep checking on you. And, one day we're going to do the labs and you're probably going to be diabetic. Huh. And that's okay too, because, we have this medicine, metformin, we'll give you that. And then, we have some other medicines. And if that doesn't work, then, you'll take insulin and, we'll just manage it. Everything's fine. How
are you feeling at this time? Did you feel like you always had? Did you feel like sluggish or?
I felt fine. I mean, I felt relatively okay.
Okay.
Like I was young and,
you didn't feel like anything was out of the norm. It was just a routine blood work thing.
Yeah, it was just a
it came
routine
back.
blood work. And, I look back at like what that blood work actually looks like now that I know.
Right.
And, it didn't look great.
Yeah.
Right. It certainly didn't look great.
Okay.
But I was like, again, like not knowing that I had any autonomy or any influence whatsoever over what happened to me, because I am just a victim living in a meat suit and walking around like whatever. And, she's like, well, whatever, we'll just give you medicine. I was like, okay, well, it's not today. So whatever, I moved on.
Right.
So then when I have this conversation with my boss and she says, oh yeah, you're going to have to lose this weight, whatever. I'm literally just trying to be a cheerleader, right? I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. How do I even do that? So she talks.
You had a conversation with you. Is she the one who gave you the advice to lose the weight?
She's the one who, my boss was the one, not the doctor.
Not the
right?
But your boss was also your friend.
Yes.
So what really strikes me about that is that she felt comfortable enough with you to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because that's really what was going on, probably. You didn't tell us the end of the story yet, but the reality is you're competing for, I don't know, 12 spots out of maybe 5,000 applicants. I'm just spitballing here.
Sure.
Right. So your odds are pretty low. And what are cheerleaders? They're there to get the crowd psyched. And so there's physicality, there's dance, there's acrobatics, there's all of that stuff. And there's also the way that you look. And so if she wasn't being honest with you, I think about this cancer culture and all this horse shit with social media. Well, she's fine at any size.
Yeah.
Okay. But if that was the message that she gave you, probably wouldn't have gotten you where you wanted to go. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, that sometimes it's got to be, remember I told you to shut your phone off? I don't know how that happened.
I don't know, but it's really funny to me.
Do not disturb was supposed to work.
I was terrified because I thought it was mine.
No, folks, before we start this thing, I always tell my guests, set your phasers to stun, and damn it. All right. Sorry about that.
I think it made it better. This is fine. But no, I mean, this is exactly the point, right? Like this woman, I could have just hated her. I could have been like, oh, you suck. She's also my boss, right? I'm sure there's some sort of legal something I could have started to try to get her fired or whatever else, right? Like
it was a solid piece of advice.
But it was a solid piece of advice. She said, look, you do you. Everything's great. I'm not shaming you. I'm just saying like, this is how the world works and this is how I see it. Take it or leave it.
And also don't quit. That's the other part of the message, right?
And also don't quit. I feel like that's the big part of the message because had she not been brave enough to be honest with me and speak truth, I wouldn't have done that.
You might have missed it.
I wouldn't be sitting here and I would be on metformin somewhere. You know what I mean? Nothing against anyone who takes metformin.
Right.
But, so I do all of this stuff. I'm doing the dance training. I'm like learning how to eat Whole30. I'm like learning how to eat real food and not just McDonald's or, whatever garbage I'm eating. I'm working out and I lose the weight.
Yep.
And magically, completely unintentionally, I lose the diagnoses that I had also. Right.
Wow.
And so the next year I go back to the doctor and not only have I made the team, they're like, oh, yeah, you don't have those. Like, you don't qualify for these things anymore. Everything's fine. Like, my period starts magically coming every 28 days. And, all the things are working lovely.
Wow.
And even in that moment, right? So I told you I was an exercise science major. I did that so I could get some science classes, but I'm not like learning like heavy medicine in that degree program.
You took it because you had to, not because you felt like, this is exciting for me.
I thought the science was interesting, but it's not like I had any like clinical nuggets that were really dawning on me then. But even then, I remember thinking, shouldn't that doctor have said something, right? And that was, I think, the first moment that I became a conspiracy theorist, which I'm very proud of. I also call a realist. But like that was the first moment that I realized that maybe people in authority that I respected and who were smart and knew lots of really interesting things didn't know everything. And if they did know, like, why weren't they talking to me about it?
Yeah.
And it went deeper down the rabbit hole. So I start looking into it, like, can diabetes be cured? Can prediabetes be cured? Right? Like I'm just
Sure.
Googling very normal things for someone who's had this experience. And I was met with like all of this garbage on the internet that was like, no, this is not it. This is not how the world
Can't be
works.
done.
Can't be done. Like it was just a complete narrative that is so ridiculous now. When like if I told you this right now, you would like laugh me right out of the studio and tell me to go home. And so like it was just the first clear indication I ever had that medicine is an educated guess, right? That science really is about asking questions, not about knowing certain answers in a lot of cases. And even the things that we know, do we really know?
Well, and I think, you're touching on something that's very important, because I think we are now a society where there are many great physicians out there. And I'm not here to bash our physicians and our PAs, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the training has been to foster a culture of diagnose and prescribe, as opposed to what are the underlying causes for this, and can we help you without giving you a prescription? Mm-hmm. And I think that is becoming more a thing, but it's I feel like we're at the bottom of the mountain looking up. And we got a long
journey.
We got a long way to go. But congratulations to you for at least getting to a spot. And also you got to credit your physician for saying, hey, here's where we are. It doesn't mean maybe one day we will need to be on that stuff, and maybe she said it's likely that will happen. But now I think we have a different perspective, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's wild. So you're now, so tell me, what do you have to go through to be an NFL cheerleader? I mean, you touched on kind of like, the weight loss and getting your mind right and setting your sight on goals. And we can't diminish any of that stuff. That's all important. What's the process like? And did you go out and did you try to make all three of those teams?
No, I decided I hated Philadelphia by not the city, just the Eagles.
Okay. The birds, the dirty birds.
Yeah, I think I had attached myself to the idea of, I love the Redskins, and I always have.
If Bradley Cooper's listening, sorry, Brad.
Yeah, I know. And it was so hard for me to consider doing something like that. So I said, okay, no, thank you.
Yep.
But I did try out for the Redskins. I did try out for the Ravens, and I actually made it to the final round of both.
Wow.
And ended up cheering for the Redskins. And I think that moment changed my life in a lot of ways. It changed my life in that it was the first time, like I said, I had confronted that question of, well, what happens when you fail? Like, do you try harder? Do you give up? What do you do? But the other thing is that it really exposed me to more and more interesting people, right? And my the good thing about me, the bad thing about me, whatever, is that I've got like an insatiable curiosity. Like I need to know, like, well, how do you do what you do, and how did you learn how to do that?
Right.
And, where did you come from, and where are you going?
Yeah.
And
well, what was that process like, though, of actually making the team? How many rounds of tryouts were there? Were they like grueling days? Was it like, oh my God, what did I sign up for?
I feel like it was like, I mean, it's hard for me to even remember. It was a month-long process probably for both, like, of like doing things and actual interviews, like where they make sure that you're like a real human that like can say words and has intelligent thoughts and is kind.
Right. Well, it's funny because I think the stereotype is, dumb blonde bimbo, right? For if I had to say like, all right, take a poll, you're anything but that.
Yeah.
But I wonder, and I'm maybe getting ahead of myself, but my mind is always kind of, these things are always, the gears are turning. Were you a standout in terms of your intelligence? And, did that help you in any way? Because sometimes I guess cheerleaders have to speak. Were you picked on and selected to say, I think Tiffany could nail this? Did it help you?
I did get chosen to do, a lot of events and do a lot of mingling with, different
humans who,
see? Yeah, it was really good. And, and there were a lot of, smart, motivated women.
Sure.
I think the biggest difference between me and everybody else was especially, DC, there's a lot of money in DC.
Yeah.
And most of the women had come from very affluent backgrounds.
Yep.
And that was different about me. And I think that that's something that's palpable. And I think it's something that is good. I mean, my kids have grown up in a completely different environment, than I did as far as, socioeconomic wise. But so no shade on someone who did grow up with a more affluent lifestyle. But I think that was something that allowed me to connect with people in a different way.
Yep.
And has continued to affect the way that I speak to people and the way that I interact with people and the way I don't know, break things when I go into people's spaces sometimes.
Oh, stop it.
I don't know. But I think it's given me a different authenticity that I've been able to lean into, and that's benefited
the breaking
me.
Thing will be our little secret. Don't worry.
All right.
So how long did you cheer for the Redskins?
I cheered for them for 2 years.
2 years.
And that was fundamental. One of the things that I did through them is, we would go and we would take pictures with people in the suites. And one of the people that has a suite at the stadium at FedEx Field, whatever it's called now, was a governor. And so we would go to the governor's suite, and it was always like full of interesting people. And, we'd stay there a half hour, 45 minutes. And frequently there were wounded veterans in the governor's suite. So that's how I actually ended up making a connection with this group it was the Wounded Warrior Project that actually brought this group of veterans who were my age at the time, amputees from Iraq and Afghanistan.
Wow.
And my dad had served in Vietnam and
thank him for his service.
Yes, has always, instilled in me that this is important. And so one of the things I was able to do through the NFL was volunteer for all the USO events. And so the USO is this nonprofit organization that supports veterans, and they do that in a lot of different ways. And so anyway, I started like volunteering for anything I could that had to do with the wounded veterans, that had to do with Walter Reed. And then I ended up getting an internship there where they were like, well, we don't really have an internship and we don't really know what we're going to have you do.
Yep.
But we'll figure it out. Right.
And Walter Reed is a hospital that's in DC or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. It's in Silver Spring, right next to the FDA and outside of DC.
And it's for the military.
It is.
Okay.
And so they had a unit there. And so my experience there, and I think this is really interesting as from the perspective that I'm in right now, where I'm talking with brokers, benefits advisors, people who have influence into how patients navigate the system, right? Mm-hmm. And what was so interesting about this assignment is that I was actually assigned to occupational therapy, but there was no occupational therapy. It was like occupational therapy and inpatient and the surgical team and physical therapy were all so closely integrated. Social work, neurology, because, a lot of these men and women had traumatic brain injuries that were affecting so many things. And the hospital was so integrated. The wives, husbands, kids were there all the time, right? You're like playing with toddlers. You're like really treating this whole human. And we would take, these men and women who we would go visit when they would first arrive. And I mean, they're literally still wearing what they were wearing in the sandbox, 24 hours ago.
Oh my God.
And they would show up and we would, deliver supplies. And I did this as a cheerleader, as well as like once I was interning there. And then we would watch them. You could watch them go from completely broken, unconscious in a lot of cases, like just completely broken humans, to like, we did this race from Gettysburg to DC. It was like a bike race.
Okay.
And we did it with amputees, right? In like modified equipment. And so like that was the progression. So I thought that was real healthcare, right? Especially coming from a situation where I didn't really have access to healthcare in childhood. And I said, like, holy shit, like I have to do this. Like, I want to put people back together again and like give them a second chance at life. This is amazing.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize at the time was that Walter Reed was in DC, that I had actually, gone there the first few times I went there. The first time I went there with Ted Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
And, there were a lot of DC people in and out of there. There was a lot of money and resources being put towards taking care of these people, probably to show that we were taking good care of them. And I didn't realize that this wasn't how healthcare worked across the U.S.
Right.
And, I found that out later in practice. But that was probably where I was like, okay, clearly this other thing happened to me. Not everybody knows everything in medicine. There are things that could be done better. And then, oh, look, this is better. And I said, oh, well, I want to be a part of that. I want to be part of the good guys who were like doing all the things right.
So what's the time frame, years wise?
2006, 2007.
That's what I was thinking.
Ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 2005.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so that was really, I guess, your first foray into, or peak into what's going on with healthcare. I love that you said that it gave you an opportunity to really, treat people.
Yes.
Because so often I've said, if someone is battling a cancer diagnosis, or someone is, they're on dialysis, or they have another chronic condition, it's not just the patient. It's all of the, like you draw these concentric circles, and it's the spouse of the patient, it's the kids of the patient. And, to be able to support, to be there. And if you were playing with their kids or whatever, it's a little mental health break for that kid. And that's really what the human experience is all about. So that really touches my heart. That's cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. And honestly, I look at my career trajectory since then, and there was no way I could have known, right, that this is where we were going. But the short story is, I ended up moving overseas. Now I'm in Germany. I cheered for a former NFL E team there while I was there, traveling all over Europe. Dancing. I danced at at a horse show in Paris. I danced at, music concerts. So essentially they were like, oh, this is great. We have this team that does marketing. Let's hire them to do that. And so I was doing that. I woke up one day in my early 30s and I said, I can't walk. I can't dance till midnight at practice. And, I was raising 2 kids, and I just I should probably retire and get an adult job. Remember that time that you said you were going to go into medicine? Maybe that time is now.
Wow.
And so I applied to medical school in Frankfurt.
Yep.
And I had no idea what it was going to be like. I spoke German, but I had no idea what it was going to be like studying medicine in German. Turns out it was completely fine. It was probably easier because I didn't know those words in English anyway, so I'm learning things. Everything was wonderful.
That's super impressive. Did you go there speaking German, or did you go there and how did you learn German?
I actually failed German in college. And I was like, well, I'm just not going to do it. I moved over there.
Something you failed at. Oh my God.
I did. And I was like, I don't need to learn this language anyway. Who cares? I'll figure it out. Moved over there.
Yeah.
And then realized, and the dance team was fine because everybody spoke English. That was okay.
Yeah.
Parents' night at the kids' school was less fine, right? I couldn't understand the information that was being given to me. Mm-hmm. My kids were the immigrants who were growing up in the immigrant household, and we didn't understand the culture. We didn't know anything. So I said, okay, I gotta figure this out. I gotta be able to communicate with the pediatrician when I go to the doctor. And so they have a system there where essentially any immigrants to the country go to language classes. It is your job, right? So for 4 hours a day, you go to language classes. And part of that language class is that it isn't a bunch of American English speakers sitting around, right? There was a girl from Poland. There was someone from Turkey. There was me. There was, so you end up being in this room with people and you don't share a language.
Baptism by fire.
The language you share is German.
Wow.
Right? And so that was interesting. And then they did a lot of, because you have all of these different cultures that were coming and, I don't know if they still do it this way, but this was, 2014-ish.
Yeah.
Because they have all of these different cultures, they really have to teach you things like, this is how close you stand to someone at the grocery store. Right? This is how you behave when you sit on the bus. Like, this is the German culture. And, you can choose to do it however you want to do it, but this is like going to be the expectation. And it was incredibly helpful. It was incredibly interesting. It changed the way that my brain thinks about literally everything.
Wow.
Not that I think their way is right and not that I think their way is wrong, but the fact that there's like this whole country of people that do things in an entirely different way and find it incredibly disrespectful for me to take the toe of my foot and put it on the, the bottom of the seat in front of me in the train because the elderly women will yell at you for that, right?
No
or
kidding.
like, like there were just all these like nuanced things that I never would have thought of.
I love that.
But being exposed to that, it was like, oh, okay, this whole crowd of people thinks about the world in an entirely different way than I do. And I'm not wrong, but neither are they.
Yeah. So my son was in the engineering program at Boston University, and he did a study abroad in Dresden. And so we went to Dresden to see him over Easter break. And it was phenomenal. And, he's a bright kid and really had a working understanding of the language by the time he left. I'm not going to say he was fluent, but he understood a lot and he was able to get his point across.
Yeah.
Which was really impressive. I don't think that would have been the case with me. But for him, that was just the deal. But, kind of getting back to what I said earlier about experiencing other cultures, it was amazing being there. And it's not a right-wrong thing. It's just a different thing.
Yes.
And for the record, one thing that they really do right in Germany is the Autobahn. Because in the Autobahn, when you're driving, there are two lanes. There's a right lane and a left lane. Yeah. And if you're in the left lane, it means you're passing. And so if you're not passing, get in the right fucking lane.
Yeah. It's
it just works.
That's been really hard to come home
and
to.
everybody follows the rules.
Everybody
follows the rules. And look, I was over there flying because there's no speed limit.
Yep.
I had a Lamborghini on my ass. I was doing like 150 miles an hour. Move over, buddy. You're going too slow. And so I moved over. Yeah. But yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
But so that experience was really positive for you. I could see it. You're just kind of glowing, thinking back.
Yeah.
And how about the kids? Did they do okay?
Oh, they loved it. It was great. And honestly, the only reason that I came home is because I started getting advice from people. I started sort of like thinking through, oh, well, what kind of doctor do I want to be? And like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And like, when I realized that I was having to commit to staying outside of the U.S. For the rest of my life, I said, I don't actually know that that's the life I want to live. I mean, I think I want to live that life right now. Yeah. But I don't know what I'm going to do 5 years from now. What if one of my kids marries an American? And then and then I want to move home and I just can't. Right. And so I think that was the biggest concern for me, was that if I did a residency in Germany, that I would literally have to do another residency when I went to back to the US. Yeah. And those aren't guaranteed. And I was also being told that, it's one thing to be a German that studies in Germany and then try to get a residency in the US, because then at least you have a good excuse. But like, what's your excuse? Yeah. You're an American. Why did you go to school overseas? Right. And, I've since then, I have a ton of friends, who are physicians, and they're all like, that's all garbage. You'd have gotten a residency. Everything's fine. But, I didn't know.
So what'd you do?
Well, so I called, I applied for a bunch of jobs online and, didn't get anything. Shocker, the professional dancer of 10 years who then did a stint in medical school and didn't finish, couldn't get a job from overseas. I'm like, okay, I look back at it now and I'm like, this is actually not surprising. But, I didn't know what to do. So I started calling people that I knew knew when I was in college and just saying, hey, does anybody have anything? Like, do you know of anything? They said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I've been doing medicine. I really like that. I don't know what that looks like for me once I get over there, but like, I've got to go home. So, what do we do? And I had a friend who said, well, we're actually like doing a research project with Hopkins, and they kind of need someone with like a little bit of like exercise science, like wellness background, and
look
like
at that.
also medicine. And I was like, sign me up.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. So
your husband was okay with relocating? Were you on the same page? Was he like, yeah, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in Germany either? Or
that was a whole separate conversation, but he ended up staying there another year.
Okay.
And I moved back home. And I started working at Hopkins.
Yeah.
And I was working with Hopkins Cardiology.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of the work. So we were doing a research study on metabolic syndrome, which is basically a lot of these blood sugar issues that I had, previously dealt with in my personal life, plus a few extra parameters, right? That thankfully I didn't graduate to.
Yeah.
And so the work was really interesting. But the wonderful thing about Hopkins is that they believe their own bullshit, right? Like they're not just like, oh yeah, we think education's important, but we don't really think it's important.
Right.
Like they really believe in it. And so I would sit with my cardiologist. They loved me. I was energetic and I worked hard and I was always happy to learn and I was friendly.
Yeah.
And like looking back at it, I'm like, I don't know how they got rid of me. Like I'd have been like, yeah, you're fine. Just keep doing those things. Not really. But, they were like, look, we love working with you, but also you got to get out of here.
Right.
Like what's next? Get out of here. Like go, like you had to go do the next big thing.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, gosh, do I really want to like start over? Like I want to start medical school again and then like do this whole thing.
Because it is a commitment, right?
Oh my
With
gosh.
a capital C.
Yes.
Like
right.
It's, I mean, including undergrad, I think it's like 14 years to be an MD. And what is the difference in a PA versus an MD?
Well, and so it was explained to me, the difference. I mean, it's a little different now that I actually see it, right? But at the time they said, well, look, if you are willing to collaborate with a physician, like you don't want to like just practice by yourself in the corner over there and never speak to anyone, then like you could just be a PA. And then like if you have any questions, you just ask your buddy who went to med school, and then they say, well, here's what I think. And I said, well, that's sort of like how I'm going to do things anyway.
Right.
So who cares?
Yeah.
Right. And the money math actually worked out like really well. Like when you look at like 2 years of opportunity cost versus, I don't know, at that point it would have been 7 at a minimum of opportunity cost. Right.
Wow.
Residents make, I don't know, $55,000 a year. So like, to work 100 hours a week. So I said, this actually isn't like the worst
better and better
idea.
all the time.
Better and better. And so I did that, and I'm really glad that I did. And I ended up practicing in the emergency room through COVID. And there were signs.
So Tiffany, practically speaking, then, what is the difference between a PA and an MD?
Well, I mean,
what can an MD do that you can't do as a PA?
I mean, there are things like an MD can do surgery. Right.
Okay.
PAs do surgery. They just do them with physicians.
Okay.
With surgeons
MDs, right? With
in the
surgeons,
room, oversight, right?
Sure.
Who are doing the thing. So, I think practically there are less distinctions than physicians would prefer.
Sure.
Which is fine.
Sure.
I think the spirit of how it's meant to be done is actually really acceptable. The way that I found it actually works in the hospital is less. So essentially, practically, at least in my experience, I worked in the emergency department.
Yeah.
I have worked with many physicians because we all work shift work, right? So it's like you're never attached to like one person. But I've never had a physician say, oh, I'm sorry, figure it out. right? Like I've always had
Sure.
physicians who will listen to me prattle on about a patient, about stuff that I'm anxious about that they know I already know the answer to,
Right.
but they will support me, right? They will stop whatever they're doing and say, "Oh yeah, let's go get some fluid out of this knee. You've never done that before. Let's go do it. I'll teach you." Right? But
I'm sure there were a few assholes along the way.
there were assholes. Okay. There were.
But the overarching,
overwhelming majority.
were helpful and just
super
cool.
helpful, willing to do things. And maybe that's because emergency medicine physicians are special. I don't know. But okay. But the issue is what we would do is the hospitals, and I don't know who makes these decisions, but it's a financial decision, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The hospitals sort of staff the ED as if there's 3 licensed medical providers on the floor, right?
Yep.
They don't say, "Oh, well, we have this physician and that physician needs to be able to pull his or her weight and also help with the cases of these other humans who are also doing this."
Right.
And so you end up in a position where you feel, or at least I did, I would feel bad going to my physician and saying, yeah, but I need you to go lay hands on this patient. Can you go touch their belly yourself? Because I've never seen this before and I just need some help because we don't do a residency.
Right.
So you're entering medical practice with less patient hours under your belt.
So you felt bad because you felt like it was an imposition somehow?
It's an imposition because that physician, and they always said yes. They always say yes. But that means the medical director is going to be on their ass about well, you didn't see, as many patients as you should have seen. You didn't see 2 patients an hour.
Right.
And they will do it and they will stay late. They don't get paid for staying late. They don't get paid for writing notes at home. They don't get paid for any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about physician salaries, but they make what objectively looks like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Until you realize that, when the ambulance calls at 3 a.m. and they say there's a house fire and we're bringing 10 patients to the ED and they've all got, massive burns and smoke inhalation and we don't know, that physician is now in charge of every life that gets saved and every life that doesn't get saved, right?
A lot of pressure.
So it's so much pressure and it's so much responsibility. And because they're really not given the time to supervise or collaborate with these APPs, at least that was my experience, it felt, I felt like I had to take advantage of someone else on my clinical team to learn how to take care of people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of gross.
Well,
I don't know.
But that's the job. So I wouldn't make any apologies about that, but I could get how you'd be uncomfortable doing that. But if you don't do it,
you have to.
Then you're not doing it. You're not doing your job.
Right. It's exactly right. But when I look back at it, I'm like, oh, I feel like that wasn't explained to me when I was making this decision. It wasn't like, you're going to have your friend and they're going to be there to help you. It's like, actually, your friend is going to be knee deep in shit over there and they'll help you. But
Right.
hope you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I just want to wrap my head around kind of the timeline. So you did your undergrad here, and then you went to Germany.
Yep.
And then you put in time there.
Yep.
As what particular, was there a particular specialty, or you were just in training at that time?
I was literally just in school. Yep.
How many years there?
I was there for 9 years.
9 years.
Because I was dancing there. I was dancing professionally for many, many years. And then
how many years of school there?
18 months. So 3 semesters.
18 months. Yeah. And then back here.
Yeah.
And now it's more school here?
Yeah, more school here.
How much more school here?
And then I went to BA school. I went to 30 months.
30 months.
30 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking like 4+ years, 4 to 5 years of education.
Yep.
In addition to hours in the hospital and all of that stuff. You have any mentors you want to give a shout out to? Or not? Was there any one person where you were like, you just revered them? You were like, God damn it, she's the best, or he's the best.
Yeah.
Or were there just too many to count?
I don't know. I mean, I'm someone who is happy to learn from anyone, and I've learned from many, many, many people in my life. I think the person that probably had the biggest influence was my actual official assigned mentor in PA school. Her name is Carrie Burney, and she still teaches.
Oh, right on.
And she was also an emergency medicine PA, which is probably, how she picked me out and was like, you're one of us. You like the F word as much as I do. Like, come along.
You're in the right podcast.
Yes. But I was, I struggled in the didactic, the course learning part, because learning medicine in the US is, in my experience, very dogmatic. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you are taught the things that you are supposed to learn, and those are the things, and that is the way.
Yeah.
And I was not encouraged, to ask questions or whatever. So I had, I got on some of my professor's nerves because I'm insatiably curious. I had lived in Europe for 10 years. I was being told things that I was like, well, actually, the whole rest of the world, there are whole continents that do this a different way.
Yeah.
So can you explain to me why our way is better? I mean, I'm American. Let's go.
Yeah.
I like being better, but why?
Right.
And then, when people don't necessarily have answers for that, it's not well received.
I love that.
Yep.
You have to ask questions.
You have to ask.
Yeah. My favorite question as a 3-year-old was why. And you know what my favorite question as a 58-year-old? Why?
Yes. It's the only way. So I got into it with one of my professors. We were in a pharmacology lecture, so like a study of drugs and the way that drugs work. And we were talking about bladder infections. It's like something that, a lot of women have to deal with, more so than men. But anyway, it's common medical thing.
UTI.
Yeah,
stuff like
UTI.
That.
There's a list of antibiotics that you can give for it. And, the teacher was like, okay, and this one, if we suspect a kidney infection, we're not going to go there. And this one, if you have a sulfur allergy, you're not going to go there. But, these other ones, I don't know, pick your favorite. And I was like, okay. Could you
question?
tell? Yeah. I was like, well, and I grew up poor. I don't preface my question with this, but this is what I'm thinking.
Right.
I was like, well, okay, cool. This is great news. There's 3 different antibiotics to choose from. How do we find out how much the antibiotic costs?
Right.
So that because I know at this point I want to work in the emergency department. I know that a lot of people maybe don't have access to health insurance. So I'm like, how do I know how much they cost? So I can decide that's my favorite. And I was immediately admonished. And the answer was, it is not your job, and it is never your job to be figuring out the cost of care and, trying to do this math. It is your job to make the patient well and to advise the patient that they should do the thing that is going to bring them the best outcome. And then I'm like,
so you got reprimanded.
Oh, yeah, I got reprimanded.
And you raised your hand again.
And I raised my hand again, and I said, but you literally just told me that I could pick my favorite. So if I can pick the pink pill because I like the way it looks better than the yellow pill, but you're telling me I can't
know what it costs. Right.
And I said something, I'm sure, that was less snarky than that because I'm, I was respectable.
Of course.
But these were the problems that I really struggled with in school. And I mean, even just from those experiences, I knew. I was like, ooh, it's only going to be a matter of time before clinical practice is going to, I'm not going to be able to keep my mouth shut and check the boxes and be compliant in a way that's going to lead to success in an environment where you are expected to toe the line.
Yeah. And so I want to talk about all that's going on now, but I have so many questions. And so are you still a practicing PA? That's just one question.
So I am a licensed PA.
But not necessarily practicing day to day.
Correct.
Were you practicing during COVID?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was.
I don't expect a 3-sentence answer.
Life-changing, horrific, confusing, existential. There are a lot of a lot of things going on there. I think.
Was it the worst experience ever in terms of just? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just in terms of the experience of fatigue and and I'm not sure what it was like in DC. In New York City, we were like ground zero. It was a war zone. They were backing up reefer trucks, storing bodies in them because that's just how many people were dying. And the medical staff at virtually every hospital was just overstretched, and it looked like hell on earth.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you experienced.
I mean, I saw the videos.
Yeah.
I don't, it's interesting because we had a different experience, right? So I was in Maryland and Delaware during COVID.
Okay.
And I had a totally different view and a totally different crisis, right? Like it was terrible for different reasons. So during COVID, I think was the first time that I realized that truth is harder to find than it should be.
Yeah.
I remember sitting, we have desks, like, you have the patient rooms that you go in, and then you have your little desk with your computer where you write your notes, and then, people can reach you have your phone. And I remember sitting at my desk writing a note, and there was a television over my desk that I could see. And there was a local news report, and they were talking about how the hospitals were overrun, how the ERs were overrun with COVID patients, and patients were dying in the parking lot. And I remember looking and being like, that's interesting, because the day that I had that day was horrific, right? And the waiting room was full of patients who did have COVID, and we were at capacity. But I had gone, and I was thinking about it on the way over here, and I was like, where had I gone? Maybe I'd gone to like pick up a prescription from the inpatient pharmacy, or maybe I'd gone to the lunchroom, but I'd gone somewhere that it required me to go to a different floor on the hospital. And I had walked out, and I've always practiced in rural hospitals, so this is, much different than what you guys were dealing with here in New York. But two of the floors that I had stopped by to like say hi to my friends who were nurses, or, to just like see how things were going, were completely empty. Lights out, completely empty, like floor 5, floor 6, no patients, no staff, nothing's there. And I had asked someone, I was like, what the heck is happening? Like what's going on? And we didn't have the staff. We didn't have the staff to open those. So the history before that, and I don't know what you guys did here in New York. I know that this was our experience, at least in Maryland, was in several other states where, for a while, like that initial rush, we had no idea what to expect. We knew that it was a novel virus. We know that like novel viruses are like much scarier than viruses you've been exposed to before. We knew there had been some bad cases, but we didn't really know. And the governors said, well, let's just cancel elective surgeries. And I know they didn't do it everywhere, but the governors in some states, a lot of states, canceled elective surgeries. Well, people were like, yeah, to hell with those people trying to get liposuction and boob jobs. And we were like, no, it's not actually those people. It's actually like the people with colon cancer who really need a resection. Like those are the elective surgeries, but like maybe it's just not life-threatening yet. But that narrative was sort of hard to understand, based on just media coverage. And anyway, so
and that happened here as well.
Did it happen here as well?
It did.
So then what happened was, and I mean, I only know this because it happened in my personal life as well as, on the news, but like, they cancel elective surgeries. The hospitals are like, well, we can't pay our bills. We certainly can't pay you to sit at home with your kids. So they laid off a bunch of people.
Oh my God.
So a bunch of nurses and, my friends like lost their jobs temporarily.
Wow.
Physicians, right? So then...
Yeah, because what most people don't realize is that elective surgeries are the life's blood of revenue for these hospital systems.
Yeah, and I only know that because I watched everyone get fired, right?
Wow.
So then you have, and I mean, this is like, this is part of what colors my thoughts on centralized power, whether it's corporate or government or whatever, right? But then you have the government who's like state governments trying to do a good job saying, oh, well, let's not bring more people into the hospital and then like cut them open and make them more at risk. Okay, that seems logical.
Yep.
But then, oh, wait, we can't pay our bills. Well, now let's fire a third of the staff or lay off a third of the staff, whatever. And then, oh, well, actually, turns out we need that staff in the middle of a health crisis. So, like, what do you do? So the wings were closed, like whole floors were closed because they didn't have the staff to put them. So then in the emergency department, which is just it's the catch-all for everything.
Sure.
So now I have a patient who had a diabetic crisis, right? Had like DKA or something. And then I had this other person who missed their dialysis appointment and has a potassium that's through the roof, like is at risk of like very, very terrible things happening. Like all of these people need to be admitted. But instead of being able to admit them because there are no beds, and it's not just my hospital that laid off whatever portion of their work, right? It's all of the hospitals. So I can't transfer these patients to somewhere else because there are no beds anywhere. I can't admit them to my own hospital because there are no beds. And then I can't treat people in the hallway. And I mean, we did. This is what we did. We treated people in the hallway,
right?
Because the person with the potassium that was through the roof needed the bed in case they went into cardiac arrest, right? So they're just staying there. But then you have clinicians who are literally taking care of the sickest people you could imagine here, trying to run and do pelvic exams in the hallway for people who are having miscarriages or like having whatever is happening.
Right.
So then we've got all of that. And then you have a entire waiting room full of people who actually, they're sick, like they have COVID.
Yeah.
But they're not like having trouble breathing. They're not actually dying. They're just
not in distress,
scared out of their minds because they're watching like the news 24/7 and that is telling them they should be scared out of their minds. Right. And they're basically just there because they want a COVID test or they want whatever. They're also infecting my patient with the potassium that's through the roof, right? Like this is all happening. And then, yes, of course there are people dying in the waiting room because the guy that like came in with chest pain, but didn't really say anything about it, or maybe it like sounded like belly pain or whatever, who's now been waiting. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. It is unbelievable. I would leave a shift at 7 a.m. and I would walk out. In one of the hospitals that I worked at, you would walk out through the waiting room. Like there wasn't an employee entrance. So like you would see the patients and you would like sort of like
note to self.
and you would feel really terrible, right? Because you already stayed 2 hours past your shift and did all the things that you can do. But literally like you have to sleep.
You got to close your eyes.
Yep.
Sure.
So I would walk out and then I would walk back in 12 hours later and the same people are in the waiting room. We had people in the waiting room for over 24 hours, sick people. Like really, really sick people who needed to be seen. And like this was COVID, right? And so was it terrible? Absolutely. But a lot of it was terrible. Oh, and I have to get back to my story. So then I'm seeing this news report about the people dying in the waiting room because, or whatever. Because like COVID is so bad. And I'm like, but hold my beer. Like there's like 30 other variables that are causing that to happen.
Right.
And none of them are the one that you are pointing to, right?
Yeah.
Like were there sick, like very sick COVID people who, went in the ICU and, maybe didn't have good outcomes? Absolutely there were. But I feel like there were so many other like complicating factors that no one was speaking to. And the biggest problem was then if you raised your hand and you said, hey, actually, this is a problem. Like, how do we fix this problem? You were the problem for saying something.
Right.
And that was my eye-opening moment.
Yeah. And so as someone who's a layman, who's certainly not a physician, it seemed to me that there was a lot of panic in the early days because, again, it was novel, new, don't know what we're dealing with here. how to treat it, what the best course of action is. And I think there was a lot of uncertainty because there wasn't a whole lot of information, right? And then it seemed, though, that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or maybe speak to it if there's new evidence that would suggest otherwise, but it seemed to me that the people that either chose or were intubated would die. Like the people who all of a sudden weren't breathing on their own because they were intubated. There seemed to be a common thread there with a lot of deaths and intubations. And the people that had the wherewithal to say, I'm not doing that. If I die, I die, but I'm going to sit up in a chair. I'm going to get upright. I want my lungs to, I want to move around a little bit. Is that making any sense, or
totally
is Ray crazy?
I mean, okay. So there's two ways to look at it. Yeah. And the first way is like, just to be fair.
Yeah.
If I'm having the conversation with you that you should be intubated, like you're probably sicker than someone else who gets COVID. Right. And I'm not having that conversation with. So I think like those were definitely the sicker people. Do we look back at all the people we intubated and say, oh God, we should have waited? We were intubating people way too soon, way too early.
Yeah.
I think most people would say that all of the evidence points in that direction.
And so was that just kind of the standard of care? And did that change at some point where as physicians you huddle up and you say, well, here's what I think. Here's, because let's face it, you're dealing with a crisis. You're thinking on your feet. You're doing the best you can with what you have. And unfortunately, I think the first wave are it's like an infantry, like the people who are on the front lines, they're going to be casualties, right? And it's not because you're a sucky doctor. It's because you're human and you don't have any data, right? So you're just trying to figure things out. But then hopefully you and your colleagues huddle up and you learn from experience. Like, what are we seeing and do we pivot? Did something like that happen?
I love that this is where you're taking this, because I think, of all of the things, like we can look back at COVID and say like, we did, I don't know, a lot of things wrong. I'm being kind, right? I was going to say everything and I decided that wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
But, we did a lot of things wrong. I think one of the huge failures that we can actually fix for whatever is next is that piece that you're talking about. Because yes, did we get there? Absolutely we did. We said, oh, okay, we're looking at the outcomes, and it sort of seems anecdotally, at least from the people I can remember and the charts I went back and looked at, and my friend that I talked to on the phone, that like intubating early is like not really doing so well. So like maybe we try doing it a different way, and then oh yeah, and that confirmed that was how it was. But it was almost, at least it seemed to me, that it was almost like you're only having that conversation really like within your hospital, right? You're super busy.
Right.
You're super, like you're exhausted. You're working with half the staff that you would normally have.
Right,
you have all this stuff going on. And so like your ability to like find other humans, people from school or whatever that are doing it in other hospitals and have these like intelligent conversations where you're well rested and comparing notes is limited. And I think that is a place that public health really failed. Like that is the job of public health, is not to like censor me on Facebook. The job of public health is to say, hey, we got all this data from over here. We got all this data from over here. We analyzed it, sort of like, here's what it's looking for.
Yeah.
These guys are finding this weird method to work. Here's why we think it works, right? Like it's to gather data and help like facilitate the sharing of information so that doctors, not public health agencies, have access to the information so that they can help make decisions with their teams for their patients.
Yeah.
And that is something that I did not really see happening effectively.
That's got to be extremely frustrating, because I'll tell you, so we did a spot that we aired a week or so ago, and it was my take on the Senate committee hearing where RFK Jr. was there on Maha. Oh, you did see that spot?
I was the one that called to me.
Okay, excellent. We had booked this way before then.
Yes,
so
we did.
Good. So I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I'm so frustrated. It's like, I've always been someone like, look, there was a whole progression in my life where I was a bully at times in my life. I don't look back at that fondly, but at the end of the day, I really consider myself someone who roots for the underdog. And I can't stand it when others are bullied. Like, it just really drives me crazy. And I feel like making healthcare political, blue or red, is so fucking stupid, because we all bleed red, yes, but outside of that, there's no place in politics for our healthcare. And yet it seems like there's this divergence going on in our culture where if you're a Democrat and you vote as a Democrat, then everything that the Democratic Party stands for, you stand for, and it's right. And if you're a Republican and you vote Republican, then everything that the Republican stands for is right. And I hate to break it to you, I hate to burst your bubble, people, but that's got fucking nothing to do with healthcare.
Yeah.
Zero.
Or most things, probably.
Yeah, I mean, so really let's focus on how about the gray matter in between your ears and using that to make decisions for yourself, unfiltered, without Facebook or Instagram or X or any social media platform or this device that I waited online for when the first one was launched in 2007. And it's a blessing and a curse, technology, and media is a blessing and a curse. But I'm going to say it's more of a curse because it's harder and harder to find the truth in media. And the reality is we are co-opted. Media is funded by pharma and insurance. They're the two biggest lobbying arms in Congress. And the grilling that Secretary Kennedy went through drove me up a fucking wall. Like, I wanted to go through the TV. It's like,
yeah. It's not good for your blood pressure, man.
No, because, maybe spikes here and there. But so I'm arguing with a physician now. Excellent. So episode of Broken Healthcare Podcast is brought to you by Benefixa Healthcare Consultants. Visit benefixa.com to learn what's possible. Reduce the cost of healthcare for your organization, deliver better outcomes for your people, and yes, design health plans that give your people a path to $0 out-of-pocket costs for healthcare. Visit benefixa.com today. What just kills me is that they keep painting him as anti-vax. You're an anti-vaxxer. You're preventing children from having vaccines, and you're making it harder for people that can't afford, vaccines to have vaccines. And, from state to state, I haven't dove in enough to do an analysis and say maybe there are parts of this that are true that mostly the Democrats were kind of shining a light on. But at the end of the day, my take on RFK Jr. is that he is most definitely not anti-vax. In fact, if you listen to him and give the man a chance to talk, he is pro-vax, but he also wants folks to have all of the information at their disposal. Know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so, folks, if you're listening, do you think Big Pharma, the folks that are profiting from the vaccinations, do you think they want to slow the train down and give you all the information? Or do you think they would prefer that it's just kind of a mandate and hop on the train and, everybody get vaccinated? And I think it sounded to me like in the near future, we're going to be hearing about some studies relating to autism, because he touched on that during the Senate committee hearing, and a study where there was a 200% increase thereabouts in children getting the MMRV vaccine prior to 36 months of age, and as opposed to post 36 months of age. And I sit there as a parent and say, well, as a human being, like if that even is remotely true, why the fuck would you have your child get this vaccine prior to 36 months? Do you really want to play, Russian roulette with your child's health? And so, I had my cousin Charlie DiMaggio in, who's also a physician's assistant and great guy, one of the smartest guys I know, taught at Columbia, brilliant guy. And, he said, the vaccines are safe and effective and all that stuff. And the evidence kind of shows that. And I say, okay, I'm not going to argue with Charlie. And I believe that he believes that.
Sure. But
I think that it's possible that, everything is not solved with a double-blind study, right? Like there are other factors that may be producing these negative outcomes that we just haven't had an opportunity to evaluate yet. And I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Just a dummy from Queens saying, maybe, but I don't understand, Tiffany, how anyone can be opposed to more information as opposed to less information and maybe hitting the pause button on vaccines if there's even a chance that we're doing harm. And I think a great, someone that really opened my eyes to this is Dr. McCary, and reading his book, Blind Spots. And if you haven't had an opportunity, folks, to read it, read that book, because he basically shatters longstanding dogma on a dozen different things, that peanut allergies and, hormone replacement therapy for women. And, the fact that that's going to, increase the risk of breast cancer when in fact it was statistically insignificant. So, when you have senators up there who were grilling him, and God love Bernie Sanders. I mean, I don't think Bernie's heart is in the wrong place.
I just
but when he's
Bernie.
up there and he's like, "Do you mean to tell me?
Do you approve of these onesies?
Is the AMA wrong? Is the is the American Society of Pediatrics, whatever, I'm butchering the name, wrong?" And it's just like, they're not wrong, but listen to what Secretary Kennedy said while he was on that tirade. And he said they're in the pockets of, they're compromised. And how could you put weight and stock in a group of, several 100,000 doctors if their funding is coming directly from pharma? There's a huge conflict of interest there. I gave you a lot to unpack there.
I mean, I have so many things to unpack, but let's start with
yes.
Let's start with Bernie having his heart in the right place.
Yeah.
And somehow still
missing the point, missing the target,
missing the billions of dollars
picture
that are really exchanging hands.
But you felt the same way, right? Like, I look at Bernie and I can't say,
I don't know what it is about Bernie.
I can't say I'm a fan or a foe, but I believe that he believes what he believes.
Everything that comes out of his mouth, I think, oh. But at the same time, I feel endeared to him because I feel like he is honest.
His heart's in the right place.
His heart is in the right place. He really cares about people. He really cares about, he really wants kids to have access to proper health care.
Yep. I don't disagree.
But he might be listening to the wrong groups that are talking about how to do that.
Correct. And I think Secretary Kennedy might have even said that. He said, you might be listening to the wrong, group of people.
Sure. So one of the most surprising things, I mean, I this is what I am most passionate about in the whole world, and probably have been for many years, which I can get into, but I didn't used to be able to talk about it. But since yesterday, there was actually information presented yesterday at the White House.
Yeah.
Marty McCary was there, Jay Bhattacharya was there, Secretary Kennedy was there, and we got a little preview. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about Marty for a second.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think that most of your listeners, I assume, are familiar with Marty. Marty was, a bit of a hero for our group, right? He's someone from the physician side who took a look at healthcare and said, it seems like maybe there are some things that aren't working the way that they should on the financial side as well as on the clinical side.
Yep.
let's get some information, right? And he took that information, he wrote his book, The Price We Pay, and we said, oh yeah, okay, that's definitely wrong, wrote Blind Spots. And when I entered this world, when I left full-time clinical practice and started really my entry into meeting with people like you, was I read The Price We Pay, and I opened the book, and everybody that he mentioned in that book, I had a highlighter and I highlighted their name. And then I went to LinkedIn and I typed them a message and I said, hi, this is my name. I work in the emergency room. This is like in the middle of COVID. This is like what's saving my sanity.
Right.
And I read about this stuff in this Dr. McCary's book.
Yep.
Is this real? Like, can we chat? Like, and I met all of these amazing people. I had a great response rate, by the way.
That's awesome.
Like people are happy
Eager
to talk with
engage.
you. If you are, genuine and eager to learn, people will speak to you.
Yeah.
And it taught me so much, right? Like it taught me so much about the way that things work and what's happening. Anyway, I said all of that to say everyone in our industry is like, oh, we love Marty. Marty speaks at our conferences. Marty's so great. And I like Marty, right? And I like his clinical takes and, all
love
of the things.
Love him or
Very
hate
supportive.
him. I don't think you could, I can't imagine hating him, but I don't think a thinking person can hear him talk and say, this guy is full of shit.
He's not
speaking, right. He's not speaking truth.
Yes.
He's kind of speaking truth.
It's true. But I tell you, my experience was, and on election day last year, and I am like as independent as they come.
Yep.
And for, personal reasons, I had been following RFK Jr. for years, since 2012.
Yep.
And really loved and appreciated his approach to science, right? And I wrote this article and it said, if science is about asking questions, why do we shame the people who do it?
Yeah.
And I wrote that article and my inbox has never been so full and not with admirers. It was all of
It's always the haters.
It's always the haters. It was all of my friends from this industry who were like, how could you say these things? And I watched those same friends, really not support Dr. McCary's nomination when he was nominated. And I watch it now, right? I watch the skepticism and I think like, how can it be that we are so attached to some political identity that this amazing human that we have revered and like learned from for years goes from being amazing and incredible and someone I would have at any party that I was ever gonna, throw to like you're making snide remarks at like dinner tables in the dark because of like who his boss is. Like, what is wrong with people?
Did you hear that, Marty? You're invited to 2 parties, hers and mine.
Yeah. But that was like, that was, I think, so profound for me because I didn't understand like the depth of it's really rot is the only word that I can think of, but like the depth of like association to political parties over actual ideals, right? Because we're all aligned on fixing healthcare and providing good medical care to people that need it. Like, I just thought we were all on the same team.
Yeah.
So anyway,
but the thought of folks forming an opinion based upon the party's administration that brought him into that role is utterly absurd.
Especially when you already know him.
It's absurd. Nothing changed. He's the same man that he was yesterday. Only today, President Trump nominated him to head the FDA.
And if anything, I actually expected that might change people's view of the Republican Party. It certainly changed mine. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
The Republicans must care about science, right? Because look who they nominated, right? It was Marty. It was Jay Bhattacharya, who is now heading the NIH. Jay is incredibly smart. He is like incredibly well spoken. And the only thing that he seems to really care about is like actually doing good, well-powered research and then being honest about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, God willing. And the thing that scares me, and I don't want to disturb your flow because you're on a roll, but the thing that scares me is it's a $5 trillion machine, and the power and the influence that they have is just astonishing. And so it's almost like their tentacles are everywhere, and even well-intentioned people with, just who are on a mission. I think it's almost like, the big pharma and big insurance could be losing 20-0 in the bottom of the ninth with 1 out and 3 strikes, and I would not count them out.
All right. So I feel like you're hyping me up now, because the next thing that I am going to say is that I was on that same team until yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday, I heard things from a public place that I never thought I would hear. President Trump, we all know, speaks off the cuff often. And he did a lot of that yesterday. But it was, it was authentic and well-intentioned. And the team was back there to clarify the science of the things that he said. But he literally starts this press conference saying, I mean, I think the first time I knew it was coming is he said, well, there are actually groups of people who don't take pills, don't take vaccines, and they don't really have a problem with autism. And I was like, oh God. Like, what's coming next? What's going to happen? And there were really 3 things that he discussed in this press conference. And the fact that it was said out loud is all I need to know that these strong men, they happen to all be men, right? Yeah. But I'm sure there are some women who are involved in this effort. But like those men, Bhattacharya and Marty and Oz and Trump, all stood there and were willing to say things that I just never thought I would hear. So his basic points were, well, my team here keeps saying that actually, if you take the vaccines separate, it's a lot safer than taking them together. It's like, that's sort of like the signal. I mean, I don't know. They're not willing to say that's how it has to be done yet.
Right.
Because the full breadth of science, it was so sweet that you said, oh, we think that, a double-blind RCT will solve anything. And I was thinking, it's sweet that he thinks that we have double-blind RCTs happening, because that's probably not the majority of the science that's out there.
Right.
But my point is, he said, I don't know, looks like the preliminary results are in, and taking things separately is less likely to cause autism.
You see, now,
and other things.
I don't have a medical background, but it struck me as common sense to say, well, maybe the issue is not, how safe the vaccine is, quote unquote, but maybe the issue is we're overloading this little baby's system with shit that it just can't process. And maybe different children have different ways of dealing with that. And one of the byproducts of that bombardment all together, all at once, might be autism.
It could be.
Does that sound ridiculous?
Could be, right?
I think I might have heard of more ridiculous things. And I'm not stating that as fact, far from it.
No one is, right?
I'm just saying maybe there are some things that we should look further into. And I know that, God willing, knock on some wood, I have grandbabies coming one of these days. Mm-hmm. And when they're here, I will tell you, I will not. It will be a fight before my kids take my grandbabies to the doctor and have them bombarded with vaccines all at once. I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but why?
But why? And
why?
So
and I get, by the way, that some people, it's a matter of affordability. They might have to pay for an additional doctor's visit, to go a separate time. And a lot of it does boil down to money, and we should make it easier for those folks.
Which is why having those people behind him is the is the way forward, right? Because if this is what they do decide, then there's a way to account for that. So that was the first thing.
Right.
Then the second thing, and this is actually, I mean, the language that was used was causal. So I think it was the dean of public health of Harvard University said, like, took a look at the study that they did with Tylenol and said, well, actually, this isn't like just suggestive. Like it appears to be a causal relationship between Tylenol being taken during pregnancy and in infancy and autism diagnoses.
Wow.
So that was the second thing that he mentioned, right? And again, it's enough that the FDA has decided they're going to put some labeling, but things aren't all changing all at once because it seems like, they're wanting to get some more science and some more answers. But President Trump's point, which I thought was literally, I mean, it's the way that I already think about medicine and always have.
Yeah.
Which is, if you need Tylenol to not die, then we have to have a conversation. Then there's like an actual problem, right? Because then we're discussing the risk and benefit of something that is going to affect the mother's health or that's going to affect the baby's health. But in an overwhelming number of cases, Tylenol is not saving anyone's life.
Right. And there are alternatives that could be prescribed.
It's just like, come on, like for a pregnant woman to be in a position where I had to say, you need Tylenol, or I am concerned that there are going to be long-term health consequences for you and your baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are few and far between, right? When I was pregnant, I was told, take the Tylenol, like keep your stress hormones low. Like if you have pain, like it's not a big deal. It's super safe. Everything's fine. And if that's not true, like he was like, look, these guys aren't willing to say it, but I'm going to say it. And he said, like, if we are getting a signal right now, and I wait 2 months to allow this information to actually come to light, how many women have then been told by their doctors? How many doctors have told pregnant women because they don't know?
Yeah.
Like, take this thing. It's
safe.
Fine.
You're fine.
It's fine.
Right.
And so we said, if getting if you can do the 4 appointments for the vaccines, right? He's like, well, I don't know 100% that's it, but that appears to be like the signal that we saw. So if you can do that, don't you want that information? Like,
oh, hell yeah.
Here it is. Like, just do that. And
Right.
what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario for that person who is like, okay, I'll do it, is that they did something that maybe wasn't necessary to do.
Yeah.
But that has not been the response of anyone, right? Like, of course, like the media and the American Academy of Pediatrics decided not to even, engage in discussion at the recent ACIP meeting, like
Yes.
It's just, there is this whole culture of, if this person says it, then I'm doing the opposite.
Right.
And it's not serving our interests.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree completely. And so now I have to go back and watch another Senate committee, or what is this? It was a press conference.
It was a press conference, and it was reasonable. And one of the things, and I want to just click on this, but one of the things that Secretary Kennedy said, I think is something that everyone should hear. But he was talking about believing women. And we have a history in this country, and it's still this way in other parts of the world, where a woman can report sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape, and they're told, oh, that's not what happened. I'm sorry. You must have misunderstood.
Right.
Are you emotional?
Yeah.
Are you crazy? No, we're not. We're not doing an investigation. We're not that's not what happened.
Yeah.
And our response to that, which is a reasonable response, is that's atrocious. That's completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
And the proper response to a serious allegation that has lifelong consequences, not just for that woman,
right,
but for other humans in our society, is to say, well, I have questions. Like, we have more questions.
Sure.
We need to investigate. We need to look. We need to, do this. And 40 to 70% of moms with autistic children feel like the vaccine was what precipitated the change in their child. Like 40 to 70% of women.
The measles, mumps, rubella,
or just a vaccine appointment in general. I don't even think that a lot of parents, necessarily know like what vaccines their kid got, or maybe their kid got, multiple vaccines.
What was the percentage?
40 to 70%, depending on like where you look at that data, right? Like, and who asked the questions and how they asked it.
What you're saying is they're kind of being ignored.
Yeah. So like, how is it possible that like these women, that the answer to them is, oh, no, we don't know what caused this change in your child, but we know it wasn't that pediatric appointment you had 3 hours ago. That definitely wasn't it.
Nothing to do with
nothing to do with it. And this was the reason I wrote that article.
Yeah.
Is because when my child was a baby, she went to the pediatrician that morning and took a nap, like at lunchtime, right? Like the afternoon nap, and had a seizure.
Oh my God.
Like had a seizure, turned blue, was like not breathing well, had issues. I brought her to Hopkins. We went to the ER that day because I didn't know what the heck was happening. And
was this prior to your training?
Oh yeah.
This was early.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
And ended up getting an MRI, which in a baby, you have to sedate the baby so you can get the MRI. So we get all the information back, and they said, we just don't know like what's happening. The nerves in her central nervous system, her brain, her spinal cord, they're just like, they're losing their coding. And I said, well, like, does she need that coding? Like, is it important? Like, because it sounds like you're not happy about it when you're telling me that.
You sound like me.
Yeah, right. And they were like, I don't know. It could be like autoimmune, but like basically if like this keeps happening, like she's not going to be able to walk. She's not going to be able to think. She's not going to like, she's like not going to function at all in society. Like we don't know, but it's not good.
Right.
And I said, and I was so little, and I said, well, she went to the pediatrician like that morning, and like they gave her some medicine. Like I don't actually know what they gave her. Like, but like, could it be like whatever vaccination she got? And they said exactly those words to me. They said, oh, well, we don't know what causes this, but it's definitely not that.
Oh, no.
It's definitely not that. And it took me years. It took me actually
to think back on that conversation.
To really get that, like to realize that it took me like being trained and like having other issues, having patients come to me and say, this happened, and then hearing the same story, hearing my story come out of some other mom's mouth, and then being forced to say, well, I'm not really sure, but the CDC has information and it looks like vaccines are safe and effective.
Oh, no, you didn't.
And you should talk to your pediatrician about that, knowing damn well that their pediatricians were like, even if a pediatrician is like open to looking at things, it's like, what are you really pointing to? Like, what sort of game are we playing?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so this whole idea of taking 40 to 70% of women and just saying, shut up, you're crazy. Like, shut up, we don't want to hear it is just stupid.
It's not acceptable.
Like, it's not acceptable.
It's not. And to think that it's practically 2026 and we're having this conversation it's just more crazy.
Well, and here's the really gross thing, and the more that like I've sort of dug into it, and like, do I think that vaccines cause autism? I don't fucking know. I haven't done the study. Do I think that anybody has done the study? No, I don't. Right. And I think that is the crux of the issue for anybody who watched. And I don't recommend this because it was incredibly painful to watch the 16 hours of this ACIP meeting, but I watched them so that I could write about it. And, to anyone that watched, we're really looking at data sets, 200 kids, 500 kids, 170 kids, like
small
samples of data. Right. And then, for example, they were talking through the hepatitis B vaccine. I wrote an article on that as well about like, well, if the kid's not exposed to a STD, then like why?
What kids are going to be exposed to an STD?
So,
or are screwing around with needles?
These should be questions, right? Or is it transmitted some way that we don't understand, that we haven't been taught, or like, what's going on there? So I did a deep dive on it, and I'm listening to them debate it, and there was a side that said, well, look, there are no safety signals. So you're telling us that you want us to think about moving it from birth dose to 1 month. That was literally the conversation. We weren't even talking about anything, reasonable. But like they said, on what? On some anecdotal evidence? Like on like some mom's like report or whatever. And so then, the follow-up question was, well, I mean, tell me about the safety studies that we did.
Yeah.
And there were like 3 safety studies out of the, the
Come
20.
on,
and
man.
then it was like, well, how long did you follow those kids? Like, what were you looking for? 4 days, 5 days. We were looking for anaphylaxis, feeding,
right.
For 4 days, right? But you're like, well, where's the person that was looking for, I don't know, like MS or the autoimmune things that like we've seen. And,
Sure.
For example, there was a study in the UK that just like, not a good study, right? But it looked at just medical records of people who had received MS diagnoses, and then how many of that subset had received a hepatitis B vaccine in the previous 3 years.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was like 300% more likely if you had received the vaccine. What I don't remember exactly what the details were, right?
Yeah.
But there was like a little signal that was like, hey guys, like just maybe there's something here that like this is maybe triggering autoimmunity. Maybe it's only in, females, or maybe it's only in 32-year-old women who just had a kid. Like, I don't know.
Or even, hey, there may be nothing to this, but you might want to check this box.
But like, maybe we just look over here. And anyway, the more the committee was like digging into it, the more it was like, there just aren't great studies that have been designed. So like this committee, they ended up tabling the vote on whether to move from birth to 1 month. Very significant. But like they tabled the vote because they literally didn't have good information in which to make a decision.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the meeting that the American Academy of Pediatrics was so upset that it was even happening that they refused to even show up and say why they thought it shouldn't be changed. Right? So there's all of these things, and it's all about, to me, it's about when there's a serious accusation that doesn't just, so the kid who's vaccine injured or the mom thinks that they've been injured by a vaccine, they're going to get more vaccines. So like it would behoove us to know if that's true or not, right? If that child actually has been negatively affected so that we can stop hurting that child.
Yeah.
And also, if a medication hurt one child, it's possible that it could hurt other children.
Yeah.
So like, I just don't understand why we can't ask those questions.
All questions should be asked. As a baseline, we deserve answers to these questions. The American people deserve answers to these questions. And if there aren't any good answers to these questions, then maybe we should stop whatever it is in its tracks until we have better information and good answers. And, when you look at the work that Dr. McCary did, referring to his, book Blind Spots, I think, if memory serves me, it was just as simple as him having a conversation with like 2 of his interns, who were from Africa. And, they were talking about peanut allergies, and, his African interns were like, we do not have this in our country.
Yes.
And that was like the light bulb that went off. And he was like, well, why not? Why don't you have this in your country? And that, of course, led to an understanding that in stopping the introduction of peanuts to infants or, small children, you're actually you're increasing their risk of, having a negative reaction, having an allergic reaction when peanuts are introduced later in life. And it led to an epidemic in this country,
which no one would have predicted, right?
No one would have predicted, and yet so that's what's scary when we have our elected officials who are, and because we're so kind of set in the party affiliation, when we have a senator from the left who's grilling Secretary Kennedy, and the truth is on Secretary Kennedy's side, because the truth is the jury is still out, the research isn't in, we don't know. then your argument doesn't hold water. And as well-intentioned as you may be, if I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, you're doing more harm than good to the American people.
And even if, for argument's sake, and this is not true.
Yeah.
This is misinformation. Even if the studies were adequate and clear, there is a large, significant portion of the American population who I believe post-COVID and post all of this media manipulation of, facts telling us that things weren't true that were later than very obviously true, just whatever.
Sure.
We just went through all of that. And there is a large portion of the population who has had enough of public health.
Yeah.
And my tax dollars are actually paying for the FDA to do their job and the NIH to do their job. We're doling out, millions of dollars for studies anyway.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it behoove everyone, even if the science is solid?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great? If you knew that this was completely safe, wouldn't you just say, spend that, $50 billion or whatever it is, spend that outrageous amount of money. Let this group of scientists do the research, and then they can bless it as being safe and effective, and then we never have to have this conversation again. If I were Bernie, that would, and I believed, this is where doubt creeps in for me.
Yeah, sure.
Because if I were Bernie and I believed that this was the way, I would say, go do your little study, because I already know the answer. And the only reason that I would not support that and would instead call people crazy and conspiracy theorists and all of the other horrific things that get thrown around to moms as well as RFK Jr. The only reason to do that is because there's some sort of fear into just doing the next step. Yeah.
Well, the answer is money. What's the question?
Yeah.
Right. So $388 million spent by pharma lobbying alone, I think in 2024 or year to date, I think it was 2024, 388 million spent on that one lobbying arm. Do you think they want things better for the American people, or do you think they want to keep things just the way they are?
But unpack that, right? If I'm big pharma and I think that my product really isn't hurting people, I'm running the studies myself because I'm sick of people trashing me and being hesitant to take my product. Let's go.
Right.
So, it is just from a common sense perspective. When you look at the people, this is what I tell my kids, look at the people who are telling you to shut up. Look at the people who are stopping you from asking questions. What's their agenda?
Yeah.
Right? Why wouldn't every pharmaceutical company be here's 10% of our profits? We love our immunity. We love being able to give vaccines to 100% of kids that are born in this country. So run the studies, show that it's safe, get these people to shut up, and let's move on.
Yeah.
And I believe that if there was confidence that in what the results would be, that would be their response. And it's strange that it isn't.
It's not strange. It's the trouble is, and I'm a capitalist through and through. I believe in the American dream. I believe we have, for better or for worse, I think we're living in the best country in the world. I really believe that. But when it comes to our healthcare system, I think that there is an inherent conflict of interest in our pharmaceutical companies, our hospitals, our insurance carriers, being for-profit entities with a fiduciary obligation to their shareholders, and simultaneously hoping, and I'm using the word hope facetiously, right, that somehow they're also going to benefit the patient, because it can't be. Those two truths can't exist in the same conversation. Now, if we figure that out, if we can crack that code, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if, and I'm not, I know what the answer is not. The answer is not, a single payer system or going to something like what Canada has. Hell no.
You don't want to wait 2 years for an x-ray? I'm confused. I don't get it.
Abso-fucking-lutely not.
You don't want assisted suicide for healthy 20-year-olds who feel sad?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
All right.
Yeah. So, but that said, there's got to be a way to get this kind of train back on the track. I'm really encouraged by the leadership that's in place now. The trouble is they only have 2.5, 3 years left.
Yeah.
3 years left, let's call it. So, then a new administration comes in, and if they undo everything that's been done and they turn it upside down, we're starting all over again from square one. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I feel like you and I could talk for days.
We could. Hold on.
this.
There's one more thing I have to say.
No,
just because
we'd have time. So doesn't have to be one thing, but go ahead.
Well, all right. So the third thing that they brought up in the press conference, and I'm only bringing this up because as someone who works in emergency medicine, it is like completely out of my scope of practice. Never heard of it before, had no idea. But one of the things that Marty brought up was that they're noticing that one of the things that's affected in autism is the receptor that allows basically a B vitamin, folate, to be able to enter into the brain and the nervous system.
Okay.
And we actually have problems with B vitamins doing the things they're supposed to do in other patients, like patients who take methotrexate or patients who take certain chemotherapy regimens. And so there's actually like already a high dose particular structure of this B vitamin folate. It's a particular structure of folate that is well received that we use in these other populations. And what they said is they looked at some of the studies. I did a preliminary look at like midnight last night, like when I finally got home, and didn't get very far, right? But it looks promising, and it looks like in a percentage of these kids that have autism, and I presume adults also, that that like over 50% take this B vitamin and are finding that it improves their symptoms, like social symptoms, sensory perception symptoms. It's very well tolerated because it's a B vitamin. There's some issues with like some rare-ish issues from my 5 minutes at midnight last night of aggression, nausea, vomiting. But like, it's a treatment that the FDA is now going to approve for the treatment of autism. So it's the first treatment that they're approving for autism. And I had this conversation at dinner last night, and I had someone say, well, like, would you give that? Would you take it? Would you give it to your kid? Because I'm like super, super pharma skeptical.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Sure.
And
although
I said,
a B vitamin is not exactly pharma, though, right?
Heck yeah. I would probably try that. I mean, I probably wouldn't try the full pill the first time. I'd probably like, there would be a process, but like, absolutely. So that was the third thing. So for anyone, I mean, autism is so prevalent now. We're like 1 in 12 boys, 1 in 31 in total, right? So
is it 1 in 12 nationally, or is that just California?
I think that might be just California.
Yeah.
And it's 1 in 31 nationally, boys and girls, last I heard.
That's insane.
But like, if someone, that is definitely something that I would say that was the third piece of information that came out of this discussion that was like, talk to your doctor. Dr. Oz said that Medicaid and CHIP is going to be paying for it. So I expect that private insurers will probably pay for it if they aren't paying for it already. I looked at it. Cuban last night's tweeting. He's like, it's $10. Come get it at Cost Plus. So like, anyway, I just like, I couldn't end the discussion without at least like offering that, because why not talk to your doctor?
And there's a whole kind of, it's that same cancel culture vibe. It'd be like, I have an autistic child and I love my child and blah, blah, blah. So the argument is not that. The argument is, if you have an opportunity to intervene and you can prevent that diagnosis, would you love your child any less if he or she wasn't autistic? And so, it really, like, we got to keep our eye on the prize. And for God's sake, ask fucking questions.
Yes.
And really, like, ultimately, you are the patient. If it's a child, you're speaking for your child. You are the patient. Like, ask questions. And if you're not satisfied, my suggestion, big dummy from Queens, no medical background, don't doing it. as opposed to doing it, you're going to win every time. You're just, there's no downside to just pressing the pause button. Now, be smart about it. Maybe get a second opinion, maybe get a third opinion, maybe talk to someone who is more of a healer and a naturopath, as opposed to try to get multiple opinions. Do some research. Everybody's got a computer in their pocket.
They do.
And so you know, again, I'm not saying don't trust your doctor. Trust and verify. Is that so hard? And
ask the questions. And I think, I mean, you bring up a great point that I tell everybody I talk to in my rants about, you know, how to interact with your clinician and your clinical team. But one of the easiest questions to ask is, hey, I get it that this is your recommendation. Why are you recommending this to me over whatever you read on the internet, right? And even if the answer isn't something that's particularly nuanced for you, the way that they answer that question gives you a lot of information. And then the next question is, if they come back and they say, because this is the only thing and I need you to do it, and you feel pressured, the next question to ask is always, what are we concerned about?
What's going
to happen? What's the cost of waiting?
Yeah.
And if the cost of waiting is, look, I really think you need these IV antibiotics, and if you don't have them, I think you're going to be dead in 24 hours.
Okay.
Then it's like, okay,
that's a reason.
That's a reason, right? Yeah. Or I want you to take this rabies vaccine because everything you just described about that raccoon that bit you, which literally happens. These are things that happen. Is concerning to me. And
we even have raccoons in Queens. They're there.
Terrifying.
They're out there.
They carry rabies. But you know, you need this treatment, and I recommend this vaccine. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I don't know. It's like a 99% chance that you die, probably higher than that. And like, I don't know. I'd probably just do it.
Sure.
I wouldn't wait on that one. But that's not going to be the answer for the vast majority of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and if the answer is, you know, I don't know, I haven't heard that, or I haven't read any studies about it, but let me get back to you and I'm going to do some research. I think that's what I want to hear. I want to hear a doctor that doesn't know everything, but is open to the possibility that maybe they're not up on the latest and the greatest.
Yep. And if they aren't willing to engage in that dialogue, and that happens, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but there are physicians, especially in certain specialties like pediatrics, for example, who are just not willing to engage in that discussion. And then it's like, okay, that's great. You're not treating my child.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to have this conversation with you.
Yeah. No, and that's fair.
Yep.
That's fair. It doesn't have to always be a love connection, right?
It really doesn't.
Maybe the physician is doing great work in the community, but they're not a good fit for you because you're not in alignment on what you believe and, you know, their practice.
Yeah.
And maybe it is. Maybe you do find that love connection. And so tell me what are you doing these days? Because I think you recently pivoted. How are you paying the bills? Is the bills an issue? Are you independently wealthy? Or did you just get back from your yacht traveling the Mediterranean?
No.
What are you up to these days?
I think I'd be bored on a yacht. So it's funny. Too. When we first met, I think I was still practicing clinically and was doing work in the marketing space and really this patient education space for aligned companies. So, like you pointed out, it's pretty hard to get filthy rich in the healthcare industry. If you're doing, it's easy to do it if you're doing it like everyone else, but it's hard to figure out, how do I align the incentives to where what benefits the end user, the patient, is also what benefits the broker, is also what benefits the vendors, is also what benefits, me.
Yeah.
And I found that the sweet spot for that for me was finding people on the business side who were looking at healthcare that way and designing their businesses that way, and then saying, you're so smart the way you talk about all of those things that you're talking about, but nobody knows what you're saying, right? And that's a problem really in clinical medicine. that, we use acronyms, we use language that patients really can't relate to.
You're talking about physicians kind of speaking over people's heads, talking over people's heads.
Yes, but as it turns out, brokers do it, vendors do it.
We all do it.
We all do it, right? And so when we first met, I was really taking a lot of that messaging, right? And saying, okay, you're saying all of these smart things over here, but your people don't really understand how to utilize whatever product you have. So let me help translate that for you.
Yep.
And that was really fun. But I was missing the ability to scale that in a way that felt meaningful to me. So like I have my thing that I'm passionate about, and really my thing is informed consent. Everything is about informed consent. I literally don't care what you do. I tend to lean libertarian-ish, and I'm like, look, you
Freedom.
do you. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But like also I can't give you half the story and then expect you to make a good decision.
Sure.
Right? I also can't put you in a position where you can't say no, because then you're going to lose your job, because that's really coercion, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so that's what it is for me. But there are brilliant people in this ecosystem who have totally different passions that support this world that I want to live in. But like they need this skill, this communication skill that I have also, right? To be able to speak to people. And so my partner, Sims Tillerson, is he's like a B2B brokerage person. He does like fractional revenue executive stuff. He does all of the numbers things. He's great at sales. He brokers these like 7 and 8 figure deals. And I was like, hey, that's a really cool skill set, but you talk like me. You like to say the F word a lot. Like, you know, you like to not talk over people's heads. Like maybe there's something where we could teach people how to be real humans, like in public. Like we could teach people to just own their dirty laundry and tell the stories that they have to tell and be vulnerable and be honest. And
so this is a little abstract to me.
And relate to people.
Give me like a practical example.
So like one of our clients is in sales.
Yep.
And every time I talk to him, he's like, oh, well, actually last week I went to Japan and I did this like training and I was doing this and this. And, my kid is doing this and this, and like has like just all of these like really interesting touch points of like perspective. And like, he journals and he like just looks at the world in a completely different way than I look at it. And all of that's buttoned up. Right? All of that's buttoned up. When you talk to him, he's like very professional, very like you would never know any of these stories. Or I had another client who was like, I love juice. I'm not kidding. Loves juice. I don't drink juice. I don't know anything about juice. He starts talking to me about juice. Juice.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, but depending on like how you do the extraction and like what the temperature is of the fruits and like all of this, I don't give a shit about juice. Right. But he's a juice guy. He's passionate about his juice, right?
Yeah.
And I know with 100% certainty that there are humans that want to work with him because he's just like a real human when he talks about juice.
Right.
And so anyway, like I think that we all have stories to tell. We all have things that make us who we are and that make us real people. And what we're seeing is like, especially since, everyone's using AI and content and noise is everywhere, that it's like, it's really hard to make an impact. It's really hard to show up on social media or in your email or in, a prospective client's DM.
Yes.
And then be like, I know there's like 16 other like benefit advisors that are in my ecosystem, but like you are the one for me.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go to that juice bar and I really believe that you're a real human.
We're going to go crush some celery juice.
But all of these other people are like only willing to show this sliver of them. I think it's like the death of corporate culture and corporate America.
Yeah.
And AI is just accelerating that, right? Because I'm fighting with bots on Twitter. I'm reading people's AI content that they just like put through chat and left the emojis in. Like And so I think we're really in a place, especially with all of the changes that happened since COVID, with remote work and all of this, where we're just craving real dialogue and real debate and human connection.
Yeah.
And
I agree with you there.
Right. And I think that, and so what we're offering is we're working with people. We're doing, strategic sales training, and we're doing communications training, for B2C businesses, but also for B2B interactions so
you're helping people kind of, you're helping people show their authentic selves.
Yes.
And leveraging that. Leverage may be the wrong word, but
I don't think it is. Right?
Incorporating that into a sales process.
Into a sales process, into a marketing process as well, right? To say, this is who I am, and these are my values, and this is where I stand in the world. And what we're seeing is like, it's attracting inbound opportunities. It's attracting people to, have like the speaking engagements that they want. They're like, closing like 7-figure deals with people that they really want to do business with. And it's all just from tweaking that communication.
Yep.
And changing the way that people are talking about their mission, the way they're talking about their why, the way they're talking about why they want to do sales, the way they want to do sales.
Yeah.
And
well, I think there's definitely something that, there are so many, just everybody's competing for eyeballs and ears, and it's overwhelming. And so I think if you can help, folks differentiate who they are from everyone else. It's just kind of get that noise and clutter out of the way.
Yep. And I think the people who do it effectively, historically, have been the people who were like, well, this is safe and effective. We're not going to look into it anymore, right? Like I'm sure Big Pharma has like great PR teams.
Yeah.
But the people who are looking at things differently, right? Who are trying to go against the status quo, or just like swimming in this like sea of like, how do I even do this thing?
Right.
And they need like the skills to be able to say, this is who we are and this is what makes us special.
Yeah.
This is why you should do with, business with me over like, what's this guy even talking about?
Right.
And so there's like definitely a need for it in the market. And I think the thing that I'm really enjoying in entrepreneurship is like, I don't have to work with, like, if I don't believe in your mission, I'm not going to work with you.
Right.
No, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
And that feels really good to me. And then what I'm seeing is, when I work with a health tech founder who like is able to attract the investors that they need. Oh, well, now that transparency tool like is going to the masses, right? Or like, so it's like I'm able to scale my impact, like my little scorecard that I get to feel good about at night through the words and the voices of other people. And it's aligned with, I write a health policy publication.
You have a Substack
I have
or
it on,
newsletter?
Yeah. I keep it on Substack.
What do you know? What's that called?
Well, it's called Signal and Noise.
Okay.
Because I think we're living in a world of noise. And what I try to really do is I try to talk about things, but not tell people what to think. Right.
Yeah.
I just wrote this article about hepatitis B that I referenced, and like, I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I just want you to know, like, well, this is how I would think about it. These are how, this is the considerations that I think someone should take, and maybe the questions they should ask themselves.
Yeah.
And then you make the decision that's like in line with your worldview.
I love that.
And I think that's really what all of this is about, is it's like, it's saying, what is your worldview? Yep. And how can you share your worldview with the masses? You are doing it quite well with your long form, show. Okay. But like a lot of people really don't, they aren't there yet. And like, how do I do that? Or even if I'm running, this, a tech company, how do I get people excited about why I'm excited about this tech company?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Are you having fun?
I'm having the time of my life.
Okay. And I mean, this is a pretty recent pivot for you, right?
It's relatively recent. It was, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, but it was one of those like, oh, I enjoy this work. This is the work that I'm having fun doing. And then it was like, I am making 3 times as much money doing this as I am my W-2 job, and something's got to go. I guess it's the W-2.
Right. Oh man. If those are the options, hell yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
And then it allows me, I think the other thing was, when I saw Marty get nominated and then Jake Bhattacharya get nominated, and I was like, oh my God, the FOMO, like these are my people and they're like doing these big things and I want to help.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to be in that place where I felt scared to say like what I wanted to say. And not that I'm not saying that
you don't strike me as someone that ever had that issue, but
but like, this thing about where I can say, oh, Bernie's wrong about almost everything, but I believe his heart is good, right?
Yeah.
Like, could I say that from a government appointed position? I don't know, but I suspect not. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so this allows me.
That's what I love about
flexibility.
The medium of a podcast is look, I definitely have a point of view and a bias. 100%. I do.
We all do.
I'm not an investigative reporter where I feel like I have to just, treat both sides the same.
Those people have biases too.
Whatever, exactly. Look at 60 Minutes. Like,
hello?
what? You can't even get it straight from 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
But so at the end of the day, I want the audience to decide and I want them to judge. And I'm going to do my best to speak truth. And sometimes, I might be bullshitting you. I'm going to try my best not to.
Yes.
It's human nature. Once in a while, I may say something and, I'll just be full of shit. I'll give it to you, right? I think that's going to be the exception rather than the rule here, though.
Yeah.
Because I really try to speak to truth. And it's what I love about the podcast medium. We're not in anybody's pockets. We don't have anyone telling us what to say or what to do. And ultimately, I think that what makes America great is we all get to decide without being told what to say or what to do. So
that's the idea.
That said, we will get some links for the audience into the descriptions on YouTube and Spotify and Apple, wherever you listen. But it was a lot of fun.
I had a great time.
I really appreciate you coming down. We got to do it again.
I know. We had so much fun. And everyone should sign up for the Substack. There's no cost.
Yeah.
It's not, and like, I'm such an open book. Like, I want to write about stuff that people want to read and they want to learn about.
Yep.
So like, send me a message and be like, hey, can you cover this? And I'm happy to do it.
Send Tiffany a picture of your eye and ask her what's wrong with you. Do I have pink eye, Tiffany? No, don't do that.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. I'll be very uncomfortable if you do that. But
I'm sure you get that all the time at a party. Really? Please? Do we have to do this now?
I'm willing to do it in person.
No, all good. All good. So, hey, it's really been a pleasure and a privilege to spend this time with you. Thank you for being so generous with your time, for enlightening me, for enlightening our audience. Until next time, folks, love always. Take care.
All right, that's a wrap. Hit like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.